Thank you all so much for joining us today. It's great to connect with many of you virtually. I'm Ann Marbarger. I'm the Executive Director of Padres Pedal the Cause. And if you're new to our organization, our mission is to accelerate cures for cancer by funding collaboration among San Diego's top cancer research and care centers. And so this is the second of our Road to Discovery series webinars. A few weeks ago, we heard from Rady Children's Hospital about a recently funded project on personalized approaches to pediatric medulloblastoma that was really interesting. And this week, we're going to pivot and talk about lung cancer. So in a few minutes, we will hear directly from Dr. Ruben Shaw, Dr. Hatham Hussain, and Dr. Nick Cosford in their project that was recently funded by Padres Pedal. And I'm going to read the title here, Examination of Inhibitors of ULK1 Autophagy Kinase as Therapeutics in Non-Small Cell Lung Cancer. So don't worry, the grant recipients are going to explain exactly what that means. I'm not going to attempt to do so. And we also have a very special guest today who I will introduce in a few minutes. I just want to touch on really what the purpose and the goal is of today's session. And it's really to provide a forum for our Padres Pedal participants and donors and sponsors to hear directly from the researchers that they're funding. Without you all, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing, and we really appreciate your support over the years. And today's a great opportunity also to understand more about collaboration. So collaboration is a word that's woven throughout the Padres Pedal dialogue. And today we have an opportunity to hear not only from basic scientists like Nick and Ruben, but also from a clinical researcher, Dr. Hussain, and a patient testimonial from an amazing woman, Isabella, who we'll hear from in just a minute. So thank you again for joining. To set the stage for today, we're going to talk about lung cancer. And the unfortunate reality about lung cancer is that it's the #1 cause of cancer deaths per year, causing more deaths annually than colon, breast, and prostate cancer combined. And so to start our conversation, we have an amazing guest, Isabella de la Huse, who we had the good fortune of meeting just a few months ago when she was out here in San Diego with her bike. And she underwent a huge accomplishment and rode her bike from the Pacific Ocean here in San Diego to the Atlantic. She's an amazing person, and she was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer in January 2018 and has hardly let that slow her down.
I was like the picture of health before my diagnosis. I had a physical a couple of months before, and they said, you know, all good. We wish everyone could be this healthy. And I never had any trouble breathing or was compromised in a way that one might say, oh, you might have lung cancer. You know, I was an athlete. I didn't smoke. I didn't drink, and was very active. And I started having pain in my back. That's how it manifested. And over the course of a few months, it got increasingly painful. And finally, I was diagnosed with an MRI that they thought was going to say I had a sports injury. And it turned out I had stage 4 lung cancer. And from that diagnosis, for the next few weeks, I went from sort of being active to not being able to move. The cancer was quickly eating through my spine. I had 6 brain tumors. You know, I was pretty much a mess by the time I started treatment. And it was really devastating. It was surprising to everyone, devastating. I had, 5 children at home. Just nobody expected it. So I guess the first step in all that, even before finding a treatment, was just getting my head around it and coming to terms, sort of that sadness that you have when you have to say goodbye to the life that you knew and sort of embrace a new reality. But I have to say that is a first step, because you can't really move forward till you embrace that new reality and accept it, and try to find some joy with it. So that took a few weeks, but that was the first step, and then on to treatment. I actually did my first marathon after I got sick about 4 months later, using poles and walking slowly. It took me like 9.5 hours, but I was quite determined to get back to things. And also, because lung cancer often manifests in the bones, and walking is so good for your bone strengthening, I sort of have continued to walk as much as possible just to keep my bones strong.
I can't think of actually a better opportunity as someone who's worked on cancer research their whole adult life to try to explain to someone like what we're trying to do. Your life or your just this short piece of your fight with cancer encapsulates kind of the entire point of why I and the other my colleagues here on the call and so many of the people who work in our cancer centers get up and go to work every day. This is the exact definition of why we're doing this, is to make more cases, to give back more years like the 2 years that you've had, and then to push that so that this is no longer the damaging sentence that it used to be, and that this is something that can be treated.
I particularly was interested in lung cancer at a young age, largely because it has consistently been the most prevalent cancer in the U.S., and it is the leading cause of death of cancer. And so I felt that being able to, play a role in terms of trying to address that point specifically was particularly meaningful to me.
There are no funding mechanisms that encourage the basic researcher exactly to work with the chemist, to work with the clinician. That's each one of us can get funding, and we do. That's how we carry the ball, the baton up to the passway point, like in a relay race. I've carried the baton, just barely made it to Nick. Nick's sprinting it down the field and bringing it to Hatem to help bring it to patients. This pedal money will allow us not to simply have to run each part of the relay separately, but will actually deliberately only allow the money for if we actually work together. And so another great thing about San Diego is that we have these 3 cancer centers that all have different specialties, and many people don't realize this. In the United States, there's actually only one other city that has 3 NCI designated gold star cancer centers, and that city is Manhattan. So even Boston, the Bay Area, San Francisco, they do not have what San Diego has. And this research project that Petal has awarded encapsulates one unique thing about San Diego. All of us work together. We very much like to collaborate. We do not guard our secrets or go for scientific glory that I personally discovered something. San Diego has a very, very collaborative scientific research environment.
Typically you think about universities, Salk, SBP, UCSD as doing basic research, but what we're doing is we have what's called a lead candidate drug, which we have designed it, working with Ruben, and it shows in the laboratory, it's doing exactly what we want it to do. And we're at the point now is we're doing what's called preclinical studies. So we're testing its, as Ruben said, its safety. We've shown that it works extremely well against lung cancer cells, both in the lab and also in mouse models. And we're now showing that it's safe so that we can move it towards getting it actually into patients in what's called phase 1 clinical studies. So this is an ongoing, we're really pushing hard on this project. And, it's fantastic to be able to work with her team, who is so knowledgeable, again, about the clinical component. In other words, daily working with patients like Isabella and understanding, helping to guide Ruben and helping to guide me in terms of what we need to do to get a medicine that really works, that you can give to somebody and it will treat their cancer. "30 years ago, really to treat lung cancer, you had, a lot of people know about platinum drugs, for example, and there's other older drugs that were developed even back in the 1960s, 70s, 80s. But over the last few years, we've really started to become again, much more precise in terms of what we're targeting, to the point where true personalized medicine, where you're actually targeting not only a small population of patients, but ultimately individuals. This is a real thing that we're going to see increasingly over the next several years.
Research is expensive, but when you think about what the possibilities are, Isabella's story is one that, you know, everyone should hear, that has been possible. So if scientists had never invented the technology to identify genes back in the 80s, they would have never found EGFR. If chemists had never come up with ways to drug EGFR in the first place, they could have never derivatized it to make something as excellent as osimertinib. You know, just that, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, Isabella would have got her diagnosis. And what happened after that? Nothing, none of those other things would have happened. You know, diagnosed in 1990, she would have gone home to her family. It's just, it is a real example of how good we've gotten so far, but also what we need to do now.
Just to offer a few takeaways of the conversation that really have me excited about where we are today and going forward. And I think one of them is just the value of the team approach. Is you all couldn't articulate that more. And that's something that's really exciting for us as an organization and to see you all moving forward. The second thing is just the uniqueness of San Diego. And I know, Ruben, you've talked about many other places don't collaborate as openly as a way that you all do. So kudos and thank you. That's another exciting thing. And I think another thing is just this theme of personalized therapies that target individual mutations. It's exciting going forward. And I think this is all so inspirational. And Isabella, I mean, you're why we do this and why the physicians and researchers on the line do this as well. So all of our Padres Peddler participants and donors listening, it's your funding that's making this possible. And we heard that it's costly to bring drugs to market, and we have a role in that cycle. So we're not going away. We're going to continue fundraising harder and harder. And